At the head of the patio table, my husband lifted a chilled bottle of Chardonnay and pressed it into my hand in front of 21 guests. Claire, pour Madison a glace? He said, smiling like a man giving mercy. Today you learn where you stand in this family. His mother watched. His lawyer watched. Madison held out her glass. What they did not know was that the room they had locked for years had already opened. And the paper they wanted me to sign would bury them first. Madison tilted her wrist, letting the crystal glass catch the afternoon light. Don't be dramatic. Claire, she said. It's just wine. Grant leaned back in his chair, his linen shirt open at the throat, his mouth curved in that calm, cruel way I had learned to fear. Go on, he said. Serve her like a grown woman. I felt every face around that table turn toward me. His mother, Evelyn Whitaker, sat under the striped umbrella with her pearls on and her chin lifted. Howard Brenner, the family attorney, pretended to study the printed menu. The cousins stared at the vineyard rose instead of at my hands. I poured the wine without spilling a drop. Then I set the bottle down, looked at my husband, and said, Careful. Grant, you just handed me the first exhibit. My name is Claire Morgan. And that afternoon I was still legally Claire Whitaker, wife of the man who thought a family lunch could erase me. I was 46, wearing a cream dress I had bought for a closing, not a funeral. I had come to Cypress Grove Estate in Napa Valley expecting an ugly conversation about divorce. What I walked into was a stage, and I was supposed to play the quiet wife who smiled while they took the house. The business, and my name, the long outdoor table had been set like a magazine shoot. White plates, olive bread, heirloom tomatoes, grilled peaches, silver buckets of wine, linen napkins folded into sharp little triangles. Behind us, the vineyards rolled down toward the county road, green and perfect in the heat. Beyond the stone wall, a catering van hummed beside the gravel drive. Nothing looked violent. That was the trick. The violence was tucked inside polite sentences. Howard slid a leather folder toward me. Claire? This is simple, he said. No one wants a spectacle. The agreement protects everyone. You step away from Cypress Grove. Grant keeps the estate stable. And both parties avoid unnecessary damage. Damage to whom? I asked. Evelyn gave a soft laugh. To your dignity. Dear, if you insist on making this public, Madison lowered her eyes. But not before I saw her foot brush Grant's under the table. She wore a white sundress and a tiny gold pin shaped like a cypress branch on her purse. That pin was not sold in the gift shop. It was made for family board members only. Grant pushed a black pen toward me. Sign it? Then you can pack whatever personal items you still think matter. I opened the folder. On the first page, my married name sat in thick legal type. On the second, I saw the words voluntary release of any claim to Cypress Grove Estate. On the third, the sentence tightened around my throat. The signer acknowledges voluntary participation in all prior financial obligations related to Cypress Grove, including the bridge loan dated 2019. My eyes stopped there. 2019. The year I was told the estate was safe? The year I found a loan document with my name on it and a signature that looked almost like mine. But not quite. I looked up. Grant's hand moved over the page. Too late. Don't start, he said. Not here. This isn't a divorce agreement. I said. This is a confession you wrote for me. His jaw tightened. Watch your tone. No. I said. Watch your hands. For a second, the vineyard went silent. Even the servers near the outdoor kitchen stopped moving. Then, from inside the house, the old wall phone in Grant's father's study rang. Once. Twice. Again. The sound did not belong in a place full of smartphones and polished speakers, which made it worse. It sounded like the house itself had finally decided to speak. Wade Carson, the estate manager, appeared under the archway. His face had gone pale beneath his straw hat. Mrs. Whitaker, he said, voice low. The title office is calling. Grant stood so fast his chair scraped the stone. She is busy. Wade did not look at him. He looked at me. That was when I understood something had moved outside Grant's control. I folded the first page back into place, laid the pen neatly across the folder, and stood. Evelyn lifted one hand. Not to stop Grant, but to save the performance. Claire, she said, smooth as cream. Take your little call if you must. But remember, adults do not punish families because their feelings are hurt. I smiled at her. Then your family should have tried being adults sooner? Madison gave a brittle laugh. Wow, that sounded rehearsed. It was. I said, I had time. I started toward the house. Grant caught my wrist just below the edge of the table. It looked gentle to everyone else. It was not. His thumb pressed hard enough to warn me, "You leave this table," he whispered. "And I will make sure every donor, every buyer, every neighbor in this valley knows you walked out because you had nothing left to offer." I looked down at his hand. Then I looked back at him. Grant, the valley already knows what you offer. Credit applications and excuses. His grip loosened. Before I reached the archway, Nora, the kitchen manager, stepped out carrying a tray of peach cobbler in little glass cups. Her apron was dusted with flour. Her hands were red from the ovens. The cobbler was my recipe, rebuilt from a card my grandmother had kept in a tin box. I had added it to the estate menu when Cypress Grove was one late mortgage payment from becoming a private weekend house for investors. Madison took a cup before Nora offered it. She tasted it and smiled. Grant told me this was a Whitaker tradition. I guess I'll keep it after the transition. Something useful from Claire should stay. Right? One cousin coughed into his napkin. Another stared at his wine. Grant saw a chance to wound me in public and took it. She did always have a talent for kitchen details. I walked back, took one cobbler cup from Nora's tray, and placed it in front of Madison. "You can sit in another woman's chair?" I said, "That does not mean you know what held the table up." Madison's smile died. The wall phone rang again. This time it kept ringing. Evelyn's face changed. Just a flicker. But I caught it. She set her glass down and said, "Grant?" The archive room was supposed to stay locked. She realized her mistake as soon as she heard herself. Grant turned on her. "Mother." One word. Teeth clenched. Panic dressed as correction. I looked at Evelyn. She did not sip her wine. She did not blink. For the first time since I had married into that family, the woman who could freeze a room with a smile looked like someone counting exits. I walked inside. The house was cooler than the patio, smelling of stone, lemon oil, and the coffee Nora kept reheating in the service pantry. Portraits of Whitaker men lined the hallway. All dark suits and serious mouths, as if seriousness had ever paid a bill. For years I had treated those portraits like history. That day, they looked like witnesses who had chosen silence. Wade followed me to the study. He closed the door behind us, then reached into his vest pocket. His hand shook. In his palm lay an old brass key on a cracked paper tag. The handwriting on it was faded, but readable. Archive. 2019. "Where did you get this?" I asked. "From Mr. Five Everett," he said. "Grant's father, dead for 3 years. A hard man. Not warm, not tender, but never stupid." Wade swallowed. "He told me if you ever asked about that loan, I was to give it to you." He said not to trust the family lawyer. The phone rang on the desk. Black and heavy. Absurdly old beside the laptop Grant used for investor calls. I picked it up. "This is Claire." A woman answered, brisk and professional. "Mrs. Whitaker. This is Dana Price at Redwood Title. We are scheduled to begin the transfer review." But the bank flagged an unresolved guarantor issue from the 2019 loan. "We need to know whether you recognize that obligation before escrow can proceed cleanly." "I do not recognize it." I said, "Then we need original records." Immediately. If the Whitaker side insists you ratified the loan, they can cloud the transfer. I looked at the key. I'm opening the records now. I hung up. The archive room sat at the end of a back corridor near the mudroom. Grant had always called it storage. Evelyn called it clutter. The staff avoided it because it smelled like old paper and because locked rooms make people invent ghosts. I slid the key into the lock. At first, it refused to turn. Then the metal gave with a dry click. Inside were file boxes, rolled site maps, dusty binners, event contracts, broken picture frames, and ledgers stacked like bricks. Wade pointed to a gray box on the bottom shelf. That one was never put on the inventory. I knelt and read the label, Private Copies, Loan File, Do Not Destroy. Under the lid sat a sealed envelope with my name on it, written in Everett Whitaker's sharp block letters. My hands went cold. I did not love Everett. I never pretended to. But in that moment, I felt the weight of a dead man trying, too late, to correct the living. I broke the seal. Inside were a photocopy of the loan guarantee, a forensic handwriting report, a hotel receipt from Chicago in my name, a printed conference schedule, and a letter folded with military precision. The loan copy showed my signature at the bottom, round, careful, almost perfect. Too perfect. The hotel receipt placed me in Chicago. The morning the bank appointment happened in California. The conference program listed me as a speaker that same day on a panel about family-owned hospitality businesses. My throat tightened, but not with tears. With proof, the letter began, Claire, if you are reading this, I failed to fix in life what my son did, or allowed to be done. In your name, I sat on the edge of a file box. Everett wrote that he had reviewed the estate accounts months before his death. He found inconsistencies in the bridge loan. He asked an independent examiner to compare the signatures. The report said the pressure, angle, and continuity did not match my known signatures. Not enough to convict anyone by itself, but enough to open a real investigation. Then came the line that made the room tilt. Evelyn said exposing it would destroy the family. Grant said Claire approved it verbally, and that bothering her with paperwork would only create unnecessary emotion. I chose peace over truth. That was my cowardice. I read it again. Peace over truth. That was how they did it. Not with guns, not with shouting, with dinner parties, donor lists, shared last names, and the endless American talent for calling greed a family matter. At the bottom of the envelope was a small flash drive taped to an index card. Everett had written, bank meeting audio. Do not release without counsel. Wade stared at it like it could explode. I never listened. Good. I said, now nobody can say you edited it. Outside? Voices grew louder. Grant was performing damage control. I could hear pieces through the hallway. She is emotional. She has been unstable since the separation. She thinks every document is an attack. Evelyn's voice cut through his. Do not let anyone from title into that archive without Howard. I slipped the drive into my purse and gathered the report, the hotel receipt, and Everett's letter. Then I saw Madison through the cracked door. She was halfway down the service hall, phone in both hands, thumbs moving fast. She was not texting like a bored girlfriend. She was deleting like a person trapped under a clock. Her shoulders were tight. Her mouth was flat. Every few seconds, she glanced back toward the patio. I opened the door. She jumped so hard, she nearly dropped the phone. Looking for the powder room? I asked. She shoved the phone into her purse. I don't owe you explanations. No, I said, but you may owe the bank some. For once? Madison had nothing ready. No poot. No fake sympathy. No wounded little smile. Just fear. Raw and fast. Wade returned with Dana from Redwood Title and a man from the bank named Marcus Hale. Nora came behind them. No tray now. Wiping her hands on her apron. She looked as if she had left the kitchen because the house had finally caught fire in a way water could not solve. Dana put on thin gloves before touching the documents. That small act turned the room colder. She photographed the folder labels, sealed Everett's letter in a clear sleeve, and logged the handwriting report. Marcus read the first page and looked up at me. Mrs. Whitaker, if this is accurate, the bank cannot treat that guarantee as acknowledged without review. Grant appeared in the hallway behind him. What the hell is going on? Dana turned. Mr. Whitaker, new materials have surfaced that challenge the validity of Mrs. Whitaker's guarantee on the 2019 loan. Until the bank verifies the signature and chain of custody, no one should pressure her to sign any acknowledgement. Grant looked at the papers. Then at Madison. She looked down too quickly. That tiny movement told me more than another hour of questions would have. This is revenge. Grant said, my wife is trying to punish me because our marriage failed. I walked past him without answering. The lie had been served outside, in front of guests. So that was where the truth needed to stand up. What would you do if everyone at the table knew the lie, but only one person dared to name it? When I stepped back onto the patio, conversation died in pieces. First, the cousins, then the investors, then Evelyn's church friend, who had spent the whole lunch pretending her hearing was selective. Howard stood near the wine buckets, phone in hand. Facha damp. I placed 3 protected copies on the table. The waiver Grant wanted me to sign, the handwriting report, the Chicago receipt. I'm not turning this into a circus. I said, you already did that when you handed me the wine. Grant came up behind me. Claire is confused. She is dragging private marital pain into business. I turned to face him. No. You dragged my name into debt I never signed? A murmur rolled down the table. Howard stepped forward. Everyone should calm down. Preliminary papers can be misread. Then read them out loud. I said. He froze. Grant snapped. You don't get to order my attorney around. He's not your shield anymore. I said. He is a witness with a bar license. Howard's mouth opened, then closed. His eyes flicked toward Evelyn. Evelyn did not save him. Marcus, the bank representative, spoke in an even voice. Until review is complete, the bank will not rely on Mrs. Whitaker's signature as an uncontested guarantee. The audio file will be preserved and turned over through counsel. Redwood Title may continue the transfer review. But any Whitaker management authority connected to the disputed obligation is suspended pending investigation. Evelyn stood. Her pearls trembled against her collarbone. This estate has belonged to our family for generations. I looked at the vines behind her. The irrigation lines Grant had delayed fixing, the tasting room roof I had repaired by negotiating with 3 vendors after midnight, the staff who waited months for health benefits while he bought Madison a bracelet and called it client entertainment. Then you should have cared for it like family. I said, not used it as a place to hide a forgery. Evelyn's face hardened. You ungrateful little climber. We gave you a name. You borrowed mine. I said, without permission. Madison tried to move toward the side gate. Nora's voice stopped her. Miss Vale. Nora said, quiet but sharp. Your purse is ringing. Madison froze. The phone buzzed again inside her bag, loud in the silence. She fumbled for it, but the screen lit before she could turn it over. A new message flashed from a contact saved as Bank Amy. Delete the signature file. If Claire finds it, Grant drags all of us down. Nobody needed to touch the phone. Everybody saw it. Madison whispered. That's not what it looks like. I almost laughed. It never is. Until it is. Grant stared at the screen. His anger vanished. What replaced it was uglier. Calculation. He reached for Madison's purse. But Marcus stepped between them. Do not touch that device. Marcus said. Howard finally found his voice. This lunch is over. I looked at him. No. Howard, the lunch was over when you slid a confession across the table and called it simple. Evelyn pointed at me. You think you have won because of one message? Families survive worse than this? I am not trying to destroy a family. I said, I am stopping one from feeding on me. Grant's face twisted. After everything I gave you gave me a last name and invoices. I said, I gave you a working estate. The guests avoided my eyes. But not because they pitied me now. They were afraid of where their own names might be buried. That is how rich circles work. They do not fear cruelty. They fear records. Dana closed the document sleeve. Mrs. Whitaker, I recommend you leave with counsel and preserve all originals. I'm not leaving. I said, this is my closing day. Grant laughed once. Harsh and empty. You really think anyone will do business with you after this? From behind the table, one of the vineyard supervisors, Miguel, who had been helping with setup, spoke before I could. We already do. Grant turned as if a chair had talked. Miguel did not raise his voice. She paid us when payroll was late. She called the irrigation crew herself. She got the permits renewed. You showed up for ribbon cuttings. The silence after that was not polite. It was surgical. Evelyn sat down slowly. I picked up the black pen Grant had pushed at me and placed it back inside Howard's folder. I won't sign your waiver. I said, I won't sign your lie. And I will not serve your girlfriend another glass of my own wine. Madison began to cry, then, not real grief. Strategy with mascara. Grant told me you were done? She said. He told me you wanted out. I believed him. I looked at her. You believed the part that gave you a pin? Her mouth shut. Grant stepped closer. Claire? Listen to me. We can settle this privately. You don't want attorneys eating up everything. You don't want the bank digging through years of records. Think. I did? I said, that's why I stopped talking. That was the truth. For years, every warning I gave him became a weapon against me. When I questioned expenses, I was cold. When I asked for bank statements, I was paranoid. When I pointed out that Cypress Grove could not survive another vanity event, I did not understand legacy, so I learned to collect instead of argue. Emails, receipts, calendar records, contractor invoices, staff statements. The day I found the loan copy, I wanted to scream. Instead, I photographed it, backed it up, and waited for them to get comfortable. They got comfortable enough to invite witnesses. Dana and Marcus walked inside to secure the archive. Wade followed with the key. Nora stayed beside the patio door, arms folded, flower on her sleeve like a badge. Evelyn stared at me. You always were too quiet. No. I said, you were too loud to hear the clock. The transfer did not finish that afternoon with champagne and handshakes. It moved to a conference room at Redwood Title, with attorneys, bank officers, and enough scanned documents to make everyone suddenly careful with their wording. The buyer group that Grant had been courting did not walk away. They revised the structure. Cypress Grove would be placed under independent management while the disputed debt was investigated. Grant and Evelyn were removed from operational control. Howard sent a letter claiming he had been misled. Nobody believed it. But it was adorable that he tried. The flash drive changed the temperature of the case. I was not allowed to hear all of it at first. But my attorney summarized enough. A bank officer had asked why I was not present. Grant's voice said I was traveling, but had authorized him. Evelyn's voice added that wives in family businesses often signed later. And everyone understood how delicate domestic arrangements could be. Another voice, later identified as Madison's friend at the bank, joked that the signature page could be handled if the family account remained in good standing. Handled? Such a small word for stealing someone's future. Grant called me that night from a number I did not recognize. I answered because my attorney was sitting beside me and recording legally with notice. Claire, he said. Soft now. You made your point. No. I said, the documents did. We loved each other. You loved access. You're angry. I'm awake. He breathed into the phone. If you keep going, my mother could lose everything. She can start with the pearls. I said, his voice cracked into something vicious. You think people will respect you? They'll say you destroyed your husband? I looked through the glass wall of the conference room at the dark parking lot, at my reflection with tired eyes and a straight back, then make sure they spell my name correctly. 3 months later, Cypress Grove reopened without the Whitaker crest on every napkin. The iron gate stayed, but the brass plaque changed. No luxury caravan of donors lined the driveway. No ladies in hats floated across the patio pretending they had always known. There were electricians finishing the tasting room lights, vineyard workers signing proper contracts, Nora testing the peach cobbler with less sugar, and Wade moving through the rows with a clipboard like the land had returned his spine to him. I did not throw a party when Grant fell. There is no clean joy in watching a life you once shared collapse. He had to answer questions about the loan, the forged guarantee, and the pressure campaign around the waiver. Evelyn resigned from every committee that had once treated her like Napa royalty. Madison disappeared from the lunches and charity photos. Not ruined. Maybe. Just removed from the place where she confused being chosen with being valuable. My divorce was signed without a silence clause. That mattered more than the money. Grant tried to keep the house in town. I let the lawyers handle it. He tried to claim I had planned the humiliation. I said the same thing every time. I planned the truth. He supplied the audience. Sometimes I still stand near the outdoor table when the late sun hits the stone and remember the bottle in my hand. The guests pretending not to watch. Madison's glass waiting. Grant's voice telling me to learn my place. For a long time, I thought dignity meant not reacting. I was wrong. Dignity is knowing exactly when to react, and making sure your hand does not shake. One afternoon, Nora brought me a small glass of Chardonnay and set it beside the ledger I was reviewing. "Claire," she said, smiling. "Today you don't have to serve anybody." I looked across the patio, past the new staff table, past the open tasting room, to the vineyard rows breathing in the wind. I thought about Everett's key, locked now in my desk. I thought about every woman who has been told to be graceful while someone steals the floor beneath her feet. I lifted the glass, but I did not drink right away. "No," I said, "today I get to sit." And for the first time in years, sitting did not feel like surrender. It felt like coming home. So tell me honestly, if your husband humiliated you in front of his family, and the proof to destroy his lie was already in your hand, would you have exposed them at that table? Or would you have walked away quietly?